Bonjour, hello Year 11, it's Mr. Calvert. This is a little revision video that I've put together with some vocab. Again, I've said this in lessons, I'll say it to you now, this is not everything by any means. You still will need to go over other things, the other stuff that I've put on Teams or on Insight for you to work from as well, and then just other things in general to go over from your books and things like that. The focus here is on the more difficult stuff or things that come up frequently. Remember, I cannot get inside the head of the AQA examiner and the obscure things that they come up with, so anything can still come up on the day, and actually any combination of words as well, so just keep that in mind. So, two headline things, this is not everything, and this is the stuff that tends to come up frequently or does come up more often, but again, I can't second guess what that will or won't be. Okay, so the first lot of things here, I've just picked these out. I'm doing these by theme, but the theme is not really relevant, not massively relevant. I'm just using it as a way to organise your revision, to keep it a little bit more manageable than dumping a load of French on you. As we've said, lots and lots of this stuff could be used in multiple different situations. It's not always directly related to the theme, but it's just trying to keep it organised. So all I'm going to do here, just to start with, is I'm going to just read through what we've got on the screen, and you can follow the English. I'm just going to say the French, and I'm only going to say it once. Aimable, aîné, argent, assiette, beau, belle. Here specifically, the hyphen is related to a family member, so stepdad or stepmom. Billet, cadeau, célibataire, single as in a single person who doesn't have a partner. Confiance, demi, so here demi-frère, demi-sœur, half-brother, half-sister. Does just mean half in general, demi. Demi-heure is half an hour. Écran, égoïste, en ligne, été, hiver. Feu d'artifice, fier, fier, fille, fils, garçon, gentil, gros, je m'entends bien avec, jeu télévisé, move on to the next column, juste, injuste, la jeunesse, l'amour, les actualités, les cheveux, sometimes that comes out as les cheveux, if it's fast, les cheveux, les cheveux, les cheveux, les jeunes, les plats, les yeux, lunettes, mauvais, mauvaise, mot de passe, plat principal, rapport, taille moyenne, tranquille, un jeu, un repas, une fête. Now, in my selection of these words, because obviously there are pages and pages and pages of vocab, I've picked a lot of these because particularly of the sounds that they've got in them. A lot of them have got very nasal sounds, so things like écran, argent, and things like that, with just really je m'entends, that's got in it, and they can be the sounds that are most difficult to pick up on and most difficult for you to then make the connection in your head with how they're spelled. Similarly, a lot of silent letters in here, which I'm going to do a separate slide on in a moment, and then just lots and lots of other bits and pieces that make these probably more difficult than other pieces of vocab. What I would suggest you do is listen through to this a couple of times, just to warm yourself up to them. Remember though, we are just listening to these in isolation, and that is actually one of the skills in the exam, being able to pick out the individual words that you hear and make a connection and link between them. The exam is not about you being able to understand every word. If it was, you wouldn't be doing this exam. So, I'm going to look at a little bit here. So what I've done is I've just taken out the individual words that have got some silent letters. There's another one on there that typically I've realised has got a silent letter too, and it's the word for winter. So remember that H at the beginning is always going to be silent. So hiver for winter, hiver. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to look at two things. We're going to look at silent letters. I'm also going to consider something else called liaison, because what happens here is you learn these words, think, right, okay, argent has got a silent T at the end, argent. So I know argent really, really well. Sometimes though, depending on the word that follows it, something called liaison might happen, which I'll show you some examples of here, and that T will actually be pronounced. And the pronunciation of that T can really, really throw you off. It can make it really, really complicated. So I'm going to read them through first with the silent letters. Then I'm going to look and focus in a little bit more with some of the liaison, just so that you've got the idea that sometimes you may hear the word differently. It changes how the word sounds. Okay? Argent, billet, gros, les actualités, les cheveux, les jeunes, les plats, les yeux, lunettes, mauvais, mauvaise, we don't actually need that one, rapport, and repas. So, if we were going to say, if we take the one for the news, because this has got it in, so the one that's the news and actually the one for eyes has got an example of this liaison happening. If you listen to me when I say hair and young people, les cheveux, les jeunes, that les, I'm keeping the S silent. However, on the news, les actualités, I'm running that S sound in with the A because it starts with a vowel. Similarly, we'll treat a letter Y at the beginning of a word like a vowel as well. Les yeux, for eyes, les yeux. As opposed to les cheveux, les jeunes, les plats. What could also happen here is you might have it might be a passage where the word that follows it starts with a vowel as well. So, for example, on hair, if I wanted to say curly hair, and I use the word ondulé, starts with an O, ondulé, I would say les cheveux ondulés. So I'm putting a Z in, because I'm running actually that X into the O of ondulé, les cheveux ondulés, les cheveux ondulés. So you just need to be prepared. Most of the time, you won't hear it, but we know what the higher exam is like. It is likely sometimes that they'll put that liaison in because it'll throw you off. Another thing to consider here is on mauvais and then mauvaise. Sometimes the feminine version, if we add an E to the end, so as we've just done there, we've added an E to talk about something bad that's feminine, that E is actually then making the S a sounded sound rather than a silent letter. So mauvais for the masculine one, mauvaise for the feminine, as. So be prepared with that with lots and lots of adjectives. So for example, intelligent, intelligent, intelligente. I don't think you'd struggle with that. But things like mauvais, mauvaise is quite a tricky one to deal with. Okay? So I would listen through to that a couple of times just to prepare yourself and just consider these other little things that may help you out. Moving on to some verbs then. So we've looked at this briefly in lesson. Generally speaking, these are all regular. They're gonna sound and they're gonna do what you would expect them to do. And particularly this includes the listening exam as well. So I've just filled in the first example. I'm not going to do the whole lot here, but if we start with the infinitive on the left, acheter, ending in er, acheter, which we know means to buy, I can say j'ai acheté, and that actually sounds the same as acheter. So my knowledge of other things is what is helping me here. The j'ai is indicating that it's in the past tense, it's in the perfect tense. J'ai acheté. If I said je vais acheter, so listen out for that v sound, that changes the tense completely. I am going to buy. So you need to be careful here that although they sound the same and that is quite helpful, at the same time, you need to be looking for the other pointers and the other things that will guide you to understand that, yeah, that's the tense that they're talking about. The other one I just want to draw your attention to here is envoyer, which means to send. The present tense is slightly different, but the rest will work with the others. So j'envoie, rather than saying j'envoie, so j'envoie, but the others are the same. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to read through the list of the infinitives, okay? Acheter, rencontrer, télécharger, partager, passer du temps, goûter, fêter, essayer, demander, chanter, chercher, obsessed with chanter and chercher, obsessed with it, envoyer, and then commander. So again, listen through to those, have a practice. You may wish to write out the perfect tense. You might want to add in je vais or nous allons for some near future and just have a play around with them. Last thing then on this section. So these are the verbs, the section on this thing actually. So these are verbs, very irregular. I've got there, these are regular, they're not. They're irregular, very, 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 very irregular. But they are high frequency. So they come up loads and loads and loads and loads. They're very common verbs that would get used in lots and lots of situations. Here, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, because they're so irregular and all of the different parts are so different, you don't have to do the job of trying to work out, or as much of a job as working out what the tense is. But what you do need to do here, though, is I've learned all three. Well, I'm just giving you three here. Those three different things. So if we look at boire, which means to drink, for the present tense, the structure here is we've got boire as the infinitive. The first bit of the brackets, je bois, is the present tense, I drink. And then the bu is the past participle, and that's telling us it was drank or drunk. So boire, je bois, bu, they all sound different, they all look completely different. You need to be able to pick out those three different things and then make a decision or make a distinction about where they fit if we were looking at a timeline in terms of past or present, or the future if you're using it in the near future. I'm babbling on now. So boire, je bois, bu. Dire, je dis, dis. So the di and the di sound exactly the same. Je dis, dis. Prendre, je prends, pris. Prendre, je prends, pris. Mettre, je mets, mis. Voir, je vois, vu. Recevoir, je reçois, reçu. Boire, dire, prendre, mettre, voir, recevoir. So that's the infinitive. The present tense, je bois, je dis, je prends, je mets, je vois, je reçois. And then past participle, bu, dit, pris, mis, vu, reçu. Okay, excellent. So I would listen through again to that. Do some things with this. If you want to make flashcards, you can test yourself. You can listen back to me. You could do a number sequence of the words. It's entirely up to you. Tick them off. You could write them out in an order of your own. Tick them off when I say them. It's entirely your choice. Merci beaucoup et bien sûr, bonne continuation.